Welcome to the South Bend Common Council Candidates Forum. So glad that you could be here this evening, and we especially would like to thank all of the candidates, both contested and uncontested, for joining us this evening. Even if you are uncontested, we at the American Democracy Project, League of Women Voters, and the Political Science Club of Indiana University South Bend believe that voters should hear what you have to say and what your priorities are. We never suggest that somebody stay home from the polls, but you do want to convince them to check the box or fill in that circle next to your name rather than leaving it blank. So it's always a good idea for everybody to remind voters why they're there and what you all are doing for us on the council, whether you're an incumbent or new to the office, then what your priorities will be. And so I appreciate all of the candidates for coming, even those who will not be facing a challenger this election season. Our priorities, or our schedule for today, will be to start by having those candidates who are uncontested, as well as Mr. Emery, who is running against incumbent Dave Varner, to each have 2 minutes at the microphone to tell us briefly what their priorities will be starting day one of a new term on the council if they are elected. And so why they're running and what would their top 2 priorities be. We will then have a forum for the contested candidates here this evening. For District 2, Henry Davis Jr., an independent, is running against Regina Williams-Preston, who is a Democrat. And so those 2 candidates will have a forum. We welcome your questions. Please write them on note cards. I have a very busy group of students. We've been hosting municipal candidate forums in Elkhart and Mishawaka, as well as South Bend. And so they've been putting in lots of evening hours as volunteers. What they will do is give you a note card, and you just raise it in the air when you have it completed. You can also raise your hand in the air if you need another note card. And so I'd like to thank the student volunteers this evening and encourage you to check out, talk with the students and talk with members of our community co-sponsor, the League of Women Voters, after today's forum. There will also be an opportunity at the end of the forum to meet informally and talk informally with the candidates over some punch and cookies. After we hear from Ms. Williams-Preston and Mr. Davis, there will be an opportunity for you to submit questions to any of the candidates or all of the candidates, where we'll have another session of what I called open mic, but really, again, I'll take your questions on note card and get as many of them to as many council members and council candidates as possible, just so that if you do have concerns that you came here today to express that you maybe weren't able to get in a regular council meeting, this could be a place to do that. And then finally, we'll adjourn for punch and cookies. So I'd like to start then first with District 1 candidate, Tim Scott.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Doctor, for having us. First district, you always go first. So just brief 2 minutes. My name is Tim Scott. For 21 years, lived at Forest and Portage Avenue. We took a vacant abandoned house, turned it into our home, which we're happy to be there and we want to be there. First thing I'm going to do once we get in office is continue working on quality of life issues, public safety issues. One thing near and dear to my heart is some of the issues dealing with predatory landlords taking advantage of citizens of South Bend. Right now I'm crafting and working on a landlord registration bill. Too often met with Lonnie Douglas and Fred Harris of Human Rights, and there's too many people being taken advantage of, and I think that's the number one thing. Which is a big topic within the first district, as well as health and public safety, mainly public safety, dealing with some of the violence and the crime issues. And also, my number one goal, number 2 goal, is to do something with the Drury complex. It's been a major eyesore within the first district. It is literally the largest building. It's the skyscraper of the first district. and it's been a complete nuisance property. So that is immediately what we're going to look at doing, but good quality of life issues is key to what I see within the 1st District and with the city, and I look forward to working with everybody on council. And in the past, I've either sponsored resolutions or bills with everybody on council, and I'm pretty proud of that, and I look forward to working with all the members that are going to be in the council. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Randy Kelly, District 3.
I'll move this down now that Tim is finished. Thank you. Thanks so much to Dr. Bailey and IUSB, particularly to the League of Women Voters and to the student volunteers. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing. It's very necessary, very much appreciated. Again, I'm Randy Kelly, running for office in the 3rd District. And my number one priority, if I'm voted into office, would be to meet with all of the neighborhood leaders, because really it's not about my priorities, but about theirs. And I would work as a representative to those neighborhoods and work with the administration to address their concerns. So to get a real feel for what the neighbors, people in the 3rd District feel is most important for them. So that would be a number one priority. Secondly, I want to help continue the good work that's done by the current council and hope to bring a respectful and reasonable voice to that council so that we can all move the city forward in a way that benefits all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Up next will be Joe Broden from District 4.
Thank you. Good evening. I think I'm in the middle here. So, Joe Broden, 4th District. In terms of introductions, born and raised in South Bend, 21-year residence of the 4th District, small business owner for 19 years. I'm also educated at the University of Notre Dame, master's degree from Ball State University. Have almost a 30-year, it's kind of hard to imagine that at my age, but a 30-year work history here in our community, trying to advance the lives of our citizens. What I'm hoping to do as a member of the City Council is why am I running? I should probably address that. One is there's always been an expectation to serve and to contribute to your community and make a difference. That was cultivated in my family. It was reinforced by my faith tradition and then at the University of Notre Dame. Second, this is really important, I was asked to run. Given my work history in the community with several startup organizations, first Alzheimer's Association, where I served as executive director for 22 years, but then also with St. Margaret's House, a real pivotal organization in our community that's helping women and children and helping people advance in their personal lives. I have the interest, skills, disposition, and I think the work ethic as a community engaged person, and I want to bring those skills to the council. As a small business person, when I think what are my priorities going into the seat, what I'd like to be able to do is to deliver effective, efficient city services. And then second, make sure that our tax dollars are being strategically invested in our community. And in order to do all that, I do think a priority needs to be to connect and build working partnerships and bring professionalism and focused leadership. And that's my background, is bringing people, the resources, individuals, skills, and talents together to get the job done. And that's what I hope to do on the council, working with the council members, my district members, and then up and down across our local not-for-profits and business community, and actually other levels of government. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next up is Robert Emery. Again, he is in a contested race, but Mr. Varner was unable to be here. So Mr. Emery will share his thoughts on why he's running in 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Robert Emery. I'll be really brief. I'm running for Common Council in the 5th District because simply representation has been lacking. Infrastructure, namely lighting and sidewalks, have been neglected for the 6 years I've lived in the 5th District, which stretches the district's main road, Ireland Road, without sidewalks on one and sometimes both sides of the street. Incidents like the hit and run of John Tolley will rise in occurrence if this isn't addressed. My opponent recently said in Sunday's Tribune, and I quote, "I don't go out of my way looking for problems, but I feel when there is a problem, we work to fix them," end quote. My strategy is to move my district forward. Isn't going to be to simply wait until there is a problem, but work to curb any issue from becoming a problem. I believe in politics, a proactive approach is much better approach than being reactive. This is the approach that I will bring to a term on the South Bend Common Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is John Vordy, and he is running at large.
Thank you. I want to say, who am I and what am I doing here? If you remember the Admiral who ran with H. Ross Perot some years ago, that was his question. Hopefully I have the answers for you tonight. I don't know if I can express them in 2 minutes, but I'll try. I was born and raised in South Bend, educated here with a Catholic background, with all the guilt and the baggage that brings along. Middle child, one of 7, 4 sisters, 2 brothers, almost raised in the public sector. There have been members of the family who have been involved in public service, and I was raised to believe that that's a high calling, second only maybe to religious calling or teaching. It took me a while to find my footing in life. I graduated from here, IUSB, in 1968, only the second class that was granted a 4-year degree. And that degree was in business administration, even though I knew all along I probably didn't want to do anything in business. I did a number of things. I entered public life by choice in 1979. I ran for city council and was subsequently elected 3 times in a large capacity, served 11 years, moved on to Portage Township assessor when I got married at age 45. Have a wonderful daughter. Wish I could say I still had a marriage, but it only lasted 12 years. Been single now for a like amount. I also served as Portage Township assessor for 13 years, and then city clerk 3 terms in my 12th year. I want to run for city council because I want to listen to everybody out here, whether it's neighborhood organizations or the individuals, and listen to the mayor and fellow council people in, as Tim said, a respectful way, hopefully being able to achieve consensus to see that our tax dollars are spent in the most efficient, effective way possible. I think I've got the experience to see that that's done. Thank you very much.
And last, but certainly not least, Karen White. Running at large or citywide.
I would like to thank Elizabeth for that warm introduction. My name is Karen White. I was not born here in South Bend, but I was raised here in South Bend, Indiana. I was raised at 249 North Kenmore Street, which is called the Lake, moved to the west side. I graduated from Central High School, went on to college. It was my first year in college that it was instilled in me public service. So when I returned back to the community, I got busy, not only working with different organizations and clubs and things of that nature, but I really made a commitment to give back to the city. I was elected as a member of the South Bend School Board of Trustees, where I served for 8 years, took 1 year off, and then sought a seat for the South Bend Common Council as an at-large member, which I have served since 2000. It's been a long time. I'm committed to the city. My goal as I look towards 2016 is to continue the work to focus on the neighborhoods. I think it's so critical as we look at our city services, as we look at the work that we do as a common council. We have to make sure that our neighborhoods are strong. We have to make sure that our neighborhoods have the streets, the lights, and things that it goes to make a good neighborhood. The city cannot be strong unless our neighborhoods are strong. The city cannot be a vibrant city until our citizens have the basic needs to work and live in safe communities. And that's the reason why I'm running again, and I seek your support as we continue to move the city forward, but don't lose focus on the neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you all very much. We will now move to the contested candidate forum between Ragina Williams-Preston and Henry Davis Jr. And both of you have been in forums we've sponsored before, so you know the drill. Please come up to the front. We will have 90-second opening statements.
90 minutes. I'm ready, let's do it. Okay.
90-second opening statements from the candidates to begin. Okay, Mr. Davis, we'll start with you. You have 90 seconds to tell people why you're running for office.
Chivalry is not dead, so I would like to lend my time to Regina. Ladies first, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to tell you, I'm coming here today after a day. I'm Ragina Williams-Preston. I am born and raised in South Bend. Graduated from LaSalle High School, and I feel like I've kind of gone through that over and over again, and honestly, I haven't really had a chance to just sit down and like prepare a statement, but I thought, you know, what might be helpful besides just kind of the regular, okay, this is who I am, this is where I've been. You may have heard that in a lot of different forms. I thought I'd just tell you a few things that I've done just in the last week. That's kind of day I'm at. So one of the things that I participated in is a forum to look at Black and Latino relations, most specifically on the west side of South Bend. Started looking at how we can work together to improve the west side and work towards our common goals. I organized and facilitated bully and suicide prevention work at the school for 9th graders. I'm organizing support for minority businesses through an opportunity specifically to businesses on District 2 this Friday from 4 to 8 for folks to see all of the rich talent that's available on the west side in District 2. Organized and facilitated a forum last night, as a matter of fact, on how to help homeowners find the monies that they need to improve their own homes. Besides that, I wake up every morning, I fix breakfast for my husband, and I make sure he's got dinner at night when he comes home at 2 in the morning. And so there's no doubt that my life is filled with service and a commitment, not just to this community, but to my family, and to make sure that we've got the best of everything in South Bend and in District 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, and I would like to first say thank you to IUSB and those who showed up today for showing up and taking time out of your day to think that this is important enough to listen to and be a part of. I really have always advocated that people, no matter who you are, participate in the electoral process. Is only when we will come up with the right answers, when not only just 10% participate, but the 100% if we possibly can get there. The question is, why am I running again? I tend to ask myself that like every day I got out of bed. That particular question because we haven't seen the advocacy, we haven't seen the results, we have not been equal in distribution of city services is the reason why I'm running. I'm running to make sure there's a strong voice, there's an advocacy for the folks in the 2nd District. I'm running to make sure that our children, our seniors feel safe in our community. I am running because it's necessary at this point in time. We have seen a number of projects that have gone past us that have not benefited us. We have seen the unemployment rate continue to go up. We have seen violence to continue to go up. We have seen housing demolished for no particular reason. We have not seen a rebuilding of neighborhoods. We have seen violence grip our neighborhoods even more than it has before. We have seen gunshots become a recent play out every day in our lives. So why I'm running to see those things to be completed and make sure those things are finished in the neighborhood so that we can begin to build. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we will now go to the first question. And again, we've received some questions by email, but if you have a question, hold up your note card and the students will bring it to me. The first question will go first to Mr. Davis. Why run for council rather than advocating as a civic leader? What can you do on council that you could not do as an ordinary citizen?
Well, great question. I've been asked that before as well. The question remains, and the thought process of policy continues to be a forefront of that conversation. Our government is dictated by policy. If we don't understand what policy is, I would tell you laws. The guidance of law sets the order of the land. And if the policy is not correct, if the policy is not being brought forth properly, if the policy is not being rolled out in such a way that the majority of people are getting the best out of it, the folks who need it the most will never get the most out of it. So why continue to work on council? To make sure policy is being delivered that is effective and also helpful.
Thank you. Ms. Williams-Preston.
I think that's a fabulous question, and the short list I was able to give you earlier is really a big reason why. I've been working in this community and for my community for decades. And what I've learned in that is in as much as you can work inside institutions and make a difference, and as much as you can work individually every day, kind of on the ground in the streets, what I've realized is that really you need to have a responsive city government that can listen to the people, that's in touch with the people, that knows on the ground what's going on, and has enough heart to actually respond to those needs. Because even as I've worked every single day in the schools, in the neighborhoods, making those things happen, when it's time to reach out to the city government for support and for help, it has been very confusing and hard process and hard to negotiate. And so I believe that with my communication skills, with my advocacy work, again, I connected with the people and I know what's going on in every major issue. When I'm sitting in a peace circle with the young people who are directly affected by the violence and the gun violence that's happening today, their friends are dying. I'm seeing them in the neighborhoods, I'm seeing them in the schools. I know that what we need to do to make change. And I'm ready to be that voice on the city council to help cast that vote, to help allocate those dollars, to help create those policies that's going to make a difference. Because I have that direct knowledge, I have that direct experience, and I'm ready to share that with the rest of this community.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, you have 30 seconds if you need it.
No, I'm fine.
Let's move on to the next question. Both of you mentioned violence. A June 2015 article in The Economist newspaper mentioned that South Bend has a violent crime rate nearly twice the average for Indiana. Why do you think this is the case, and what can a council member do to address this problem? This goes first to you, Ms. Williams-Preston.
I think that there's lots of research around social issues to understand that violence in the community is directly related to economic issues and with education. And when you look at what's happening in South Bend, I've talked all the time a lot about the ALICE report, Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed, the working poor. And in our community, most specifically in District 2, we're looking at in Portage Township, 56% of the people who live in Portage Township don't make enough to make ends meet every single day. And when you're talking about the direct connection between economics and education, the other statistics I share with people, within a 10-mile radius of South Bend, 40,000 people do not have a high school credential. So even when we bring in those jobs, will we be able to actually qualify for those jobs that come in? These are the root cause issues, and we can go to the police and we can work on public safety in that traditional sense. Or we can begin to address the real problems that's going on in our community. We have to understand the problem. What's the difference between youth violence and gang violence? And guess what? I'm learning that from being out there with the young people. And that's what I'm saying. We need to have that direct connection with the people who are directly affected with this problem, because all of those things are connected: education, economic development, and the violence that's happening in our community. If you know the stories, and I do, because when something goes down and somebody gets shot, I'm talking to the people who were there. And when you know the stories, it's a lot deeper. And that's when you can really look at solutions to make a difference in your community.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Could you repeat the question for me, please?
Yes. A June 2015 article in The Economist newspaper mentioned that South Bend had a violent crime rate nearly twice the average for Indiana. Why do you think this is the case? And what can a council member do to address this problem?
I think the reason why crime rate number one is so high is because we are in denial. I think that what has happened time and time again, budgeting process, is that we have made ourselves believe that the dying city tag was not necessary. We want to make ourselves believe that the poverty rate is not the way it is. We want to make ourselves believe that everything is going great and nothing is wrong. We have been in denial for quite a long time about the way the city government has worked and become the leader in how we grow from it. We have been very in much denial about the jobs that are being offered to all folks, but even those who are more employed than others, meaning the folks in the minority community. When you're doing public works projects and you don't see anyone of color working on those projects, we've been in denial about how our kids really see themselves in their environment. We have been in denial about how we have an issue with the food deserts, where children are constantly going to a mini mart to feed themselves. So how do we attack that issue? We have to attack that issue from another number of different areas. We have to attack that from the faith community. We have to integrate the faith community in the conversation, number one. Number two, we have to begin to also look at how do we set programs for our children. I've been a part of making sure there was a summer jobs program that have helped our young people. I've also made sure that our parks, Kennedy Park being one, that's going to see a new outfit there, and making sure that there are things there available for our children. So we're working at it. I'm working at it. The work is being done, but we can no longer live in denial about our situation.
Thank you.
Sure. One of the things I'd like to say more about is what can a council member do about these issues. Again, when you really are able to recognize the root causes of some of these problems, again, being education and economic development, uplifting those voices of those who are in those situations to make that connection with the people who are making the decisions on the council and in the city administration. That's one of the really important things. Economic development is really important because when minority families are not getting those jobs, when they're not getting those contracts, Black students, and this is directly, do not see their parents working. So how do they learn the value of a hard day's work? They see them going every day and working hard, but nothing is happening. So that makes a difference. Why stay in school? That's why.
And a PSA to boot.
That's
okay. Very good. All right, let's move to the next question. We have just 30 seconds for that after response. That's why that time passed so quickly. Okay, so we'll now go to the next question, and we'll go first to Mr. Davis. Some South Bend residents, especially African Americans, report feeling left behind by recent efforts to revitalize the city. Do minority members of your district feel that way? If so, what can be done to convince people that their interests are being represented and their voices are being heard?
You said most minority, or did you say African Americans?
Some South Bend residents, especially African Americans, is the way the question came to us.
Are being left behind is what you
Feel that they are being left behind.
Well, sure. That's a bit easy, right? We just had a conversation, the council, we've actually voted in a conversation that had everything to do with minority hiring and finding a recruiter to do that very thing. The city itself obviously thought and understood that we needed help. I voted against that particular position because I thought that that was a very racist position. I thought the position itself said not only that we're not interested in hiring people of color, especially minorities or African Americans, but it also set the stage for a scapegoat to say that person, if they did not follow through with better numbers, that person will be the reason why it didn't happen. South Bend is in need of a mind change culturally. I've said this once, I've said this twice, I've said this a million times. I think that what has happened over the years has been an acceptance of how this has worked out for those, especially those of color. It's always a wait and see, let's see what happens, let's continue on. And meanwhile, those very folk continue to vote in very, very high numbers for the Democratic Party, 75% across the nation. And as you see, the unemployment within those communities are always double of their white counterparts. So there's a lot in there, but what I am going to say is that there needs to be a rejuvenation of a culture and spirit in the state of South Bend.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, question.
To the question of whether African Americans feel left behind, I certainly have heard that. I've certainly heard that sentiment. And I also want to say that, if we know our history, there's never been a time that I'm aware of that any sort of institution or establishment has given anything to African Americans. Our history is about struggle. Our history is about fighting. And I don't think that the African Americans in our community truly believe that we need to sit back and wait for the city to do anything for us. I think it's critical that we hold our city administration accountable for making sure that they're providing the services. And I think that the rejuvenation that we need in District 2 is about remembering our strong history as African Americans and get up and do some of this stuff for ourselves. It's time for a self-sufficiency model, because that's how we've always got it done in the past. So even as we go downtown and we demand that the city provide the resources and the money and the support, it's time for us to get up and start getting it done for ourselves, because we also don't have time to wait. Our streets are a mess. Our seniors can't walk down the sidewalks. That's a problem. What are we going to do about that? We don't have the money to fix up our homes. Am I going to wait for Pete Buttigieg to decide that he's going to give me some money to do that? I don't have time, and neither do the people of District 2. We need to organize, we need to get it together, and once we show and demonstrate all of the things that we can do, guess what? The city's going to be knocking on our door trying to get in on the action, because that's the way it's always worked.
30 seconds if you'd like it, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I would really like to, be clear. District 2 is a part of the city. When people feel like that they have to fight, struggle for something that they already do, that means there's a problem. I've been an advocate for the District 2 because of those very reasons. I've been actually called, an obstructionist, a person that likes the camera too much, that type of thing, because I understood that this struggle and also the fight. But what I do understand is about representation of government. And the government is not doing their job. The government is being tyrannical government on the people that they're supposed to be serving. So yes, I think it's necessary that the District 2 it becomes a part of the city and not the redhead stepchild of the city.
Okay. Thank you. It sounds like people from the district agree with that. Speaking of people from the district, and also a point you raised, Ms. Williams, we have several questions for you and several for Mr. Davis. So I'll go ahead and pose a couple to you here. One says, Regina, rumor has it that you do not live in the second district. Is there any truth to it? Thank you. And do you owe the city of South Bend $95,000 for fines for houses and being a slumlord? So these are a couple of challenge questions for you.
Okay, that's fine. What was the first one?
Do I
live in the district? Yes. The second, in terms of, there is a lot of rumor and things out there on Facebook. And it's funny because I get a lot of texts from my former students. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe such a, I told them, remember what we always taught about ignoring negative behavior? because rumors are not going to get you anywhere. I think what's really important is that people, if you're concerned about that issue, not one of those people that I saw writing about me on Facebook actually came to me, and some of them were my council members. Some of them were at large, some of them whatever, but city leaders who are not investigating that. Because to me, the first question I would have as a council representative is, how would somebody in my district in less than a year accrue thousands of dollars? I mean, I don't even know, to be honest with you. I want somebody to give me that report, because I've asked for that from code enforcement, and they actually haven't given it to me. I heard they were able to find that information for somebody else, but we're still waiting. So in any case, so my question is, why aren't we investigating how can that happen? And if that is happening, and if that's a process that is legal, what are our policies that's causing that to happen to people in our district who actually have, when we're looking at issues like the Alice report? If people are struggling so much, what is our system doing to residents in our community that causes them to have this kind of debt that's mounting in the city? And to me, that's the critical question. And I'm wondering, why isn't anybody investigating that? Because I have been there, and that's what I've learned about. So we need to have more of a conversation, not about the rumor and conjecture, but more of a conversation about what are we going to do to support residents that are being oppressed, that are being targeted in this community by their own city government.
Thank you. Okay.
I didn't hear an answer.
So what's that?
I
So if
didn't-
I understand correctly, you have some debts, you're not exactly sure how much because you haven't received the formal
I have,
report.
for clarity, since I have emails to demonstrate since December of 2014, I have requested and been working with the city around what exactly, needs to happen with the various properties that I own. I've gotten various different information, but I have never received a list, although I've asked. This is an ongoing situation with which, in fact, I'm happy to have this conversation with whomever is interested, because my story is the story of many people in this district, and I have learned the ins and the outs, and I've engaged in this process, and I understand now the policy that's driving some of these problems that people are having with code enforcement. Y'all out there, y'all know y'all done seen some stuff with code. We need an investigation as to what's happening, how are these policies truly affecting people in our district, specifically the districts that's under the West Side Main Streets plan. Because this is about aggressive code enforcement, this is about displacement and forcing people out of their homes. And so if you're interested in having that conversation, let's talk about it next week. People have asked me to convene a forum on that, and I'm more than welcome, happy to do that.
All right, thank you. Since that became a part of a larger discussion, Mr. Davis, if you'd like to respond, that would be fine.
Yeah, that has been my issue, being on council for 8 years. The people who are irresponsible with their properties. And I'm not just saying my opponent is irresponsible. What I am saying is that the lack of code enforcement with housing and people parking on their lawns and just being very disrespectful of the laws that are for has been a major issue. Trees hanging out in the public right of way, the city can't come out and cut them down. We're talking about the lack of enforcement of police when it comes to people speeding down streets. And the list continues to go on and on and on. Yes, I'm unhappy that we have people who do run for city government who have these major issues, whether it's $65,000 or $95,000. We have those issues, and so how do we, as a city, are delighted to support something that has been a cancer to our neighborhoods? We can't, and we've worked really hard, and Tim has as well, with trying to find a good way of governing landlords in a better way. The state has not given us a clear picture on how to get that done. However, there are targets that we can continue to hit and make sure code enforcement is equipped to go out and get it done for us. So yeah, I'm very unhappy that has happened. One of my first days on council was going to the front of a house on the corner of Lonely and Elmer and having a press conference because the code enforcement in the solid waste refused to take care of the house and make sure the house was secured properly. So yes, I'm unhappy when those things happen. Very unhappy.
Thank
Can I get my
you.
30 seconds?
30 seconds.
One of the things that wasn't addressed is the issue of slum alert, and I kind of laugh at that because actually, again, if people would take the time to come and ask or actually do their research, none of the homes that have these code violations have ever been rented. And so it's kind of interesting to me that you would get this title and these people throwing around these words that are certainly slanderous, and they haven't really done their homework. So I think it's really important that people, if you have a question about it, I've got my cell phone on all of my literature. Please call me and let's talk about it, because it's important before you solve anything. You've got to have the right information.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question will be addressed to you, Mr. Davis. There are 3 related cards, just there were several related cards for your opponent. It says, Henry Davis, how many bills, not resolutions, have you written yourself during your term as councilperson? The people of the 2nd District are tired of negative commentary but no solid work or positive change. How do you plan on making positive change instead of rhetoric in the 2nd District? And if you talk about deterioration of South Bend, violence has increased, unemployment, you say, has risen. You've been in council for 8 years. Why should we expect anything to be improved from you? So what
That's
have
a
you
loaded
done? What would you do
question. Whoa.
in the future?
That's a heavy question, because I think that has to break down to the structure of our government. We have a second-class city where we have a strong mayoral system where the council has to support the mayor's initiatives or not. And so I'm going to talk very fast because I want people to understand how this thing actually works. There is a budget that goes into place for the priorities of the mayor. The council gets that priority through the presentations of city's department heads along with the mayor's office. If those things do not fit, obviously there's an opportunity for us to go back and forth about what needs to be increased, what should be increased, or if the council wants to cut those things. However, for me to say that I am the sole person that can stop crime would be a bit unfair. But if we want to say the mayor's office, because of enforcement of code, all codes, because that's what we pay the mayor to do, should be on this mayor's lap when we talk about crime and violence, then that's what we need to speak with, and that's what we need to talk to. I am an advocate for the District 2. I am there because the people who speak to me, I'm the closest to the people to make sure that the mayor is being held accountable for the job that he is not doing. Now, the other part of the question, I think they were saying something about 8 years. I've been on council for 8 years. How many resolutions and bills and ordinances are closely related? I've had the pleasure of sponsoring bills, not only as lead legislation for the liquor license downtown, but also the whistleblower, which Tim and I worked on together for city employees. I've also got Bill 44-3 adopted for the city of South Bend, where now we were able to use that as a marketing tool, and we're seeing a jet turbine company now that's on Initiative Park being built. So the amount of bills that I've written, I don't keep track of that. However, the work has been done. I would probably say close over 8 years, probably more than 10.
Thank you. Any response?
I would just say, from my perspective, I understand that one council person can't make change by themselves. And that's why it's critically important to be able to communicate, to be able to build relationships with the other council members, and even with your city administration, whether you like someone, whether you don't like someone, whether you agree or you don't agree, in order to harness that power that you have as a council to make a difference in your community. And it's important, and this is a lesson I teach my kids, to take responsibility. Because when you take responsibility, you take power. And if something doesn't happen for my district, yeah, that's my fault. Let me take care of it and get it done.
Thank you. Henry, did you want 30 more seconds or finish with that?
Sure, I can handle another 30 seconds. You know, my job is not only to just legislate, it's to know the people. It's also to be an advocate. It's also to hear from the people. It's also to make sure that the people understand that I am there for them. If we get into this conversation about how many bills I've gotten passed, look, at the end of the day, if I can pass 1,000 bills, but there's no money, there's no enforcement behind it. We have a whole book probably this thick of bills that are not being enforced, that are supposed to make our city better. So my main focus, my main job is to make sure the district residents understand that Henry is there for them. Henry is going to make sure that they are being heard. Henry is going to continue to lead and lead relentlessly.
Thank you. For both candidates then, what positive steps have you taken to help people in the 2nd District stay in their home and maintain the integrity of their neighborhoods? And how will you bring more resources to the district? Goes first to Ms. Williams-Preston.
Since I kind of embarked, since 4 years ago, on this issue of vacant and abandoned homes and addressing that in our neighborhood, I actually started that process before the city was even looking at that issue back in 2011. And when homes in our neighborhood had sat dormant for 15, 20 years. And I helped to organize the neighborhood association in the neighborhood in which I grew up in order to secure their 501c3. And as I went down to the city to investigate how do you get resources from the city to help the neighborhood, and I found out you can get some CDBG money. $2.5 million comes into this city every single year, and it has for the last 8 years. And what I want to know is why nobody in District 2 is getting that money. So we organized the residents to make sure that that happened. We now, 3 years, 4 years later, are in the position to actually create our own revolving loan fund so that we can supply monies, those small loans, no or low interest loans, to the residents in the community. And it took time, and it took having a connection to the neighborhood and understanding exactly what the needs of the people are. And now we're going to not just get money. We know that the problems that the banks don't lend. We know the city has divested in our community for a long time. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of organizing ourselves to make sure that we get the resources that we need.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, positive steps to help people stay in their homes and maintain the integrity of their neighborhood. And how can you bring more resources to the district?
Well, I'm going to say back when 1,000 houses, 1,000 days idea came out, I was the first out there to tell them, no, stop, let's not do this. This is like crazy. What I did say is that we need to follow that up with some sort of legislation to help improve how this is going to be dished out. And so when I went back and I worked with our council attorney and was able to put out a bill, we turned into an ordinance to make sure that we knew why these homes were being demolished, who was investigating why these houses were being demolished and what area. Needless to say, the mayor's office never responded to that, and I finally got my list probably about 2 years later after the bill was passed. The second thing that was done to make sure people stayed in their houses, I worked with 6th District Representative Oliver Davis to make sure that the folks over there in the South Side received their fair share of help when their homes were flooded. I mean, outside of the district, that is one of the things that I pride myself on and making sure that those things are done. I also started a conversation, and also it turned into actually a reality for some residents here in the city of South Bend. Went to Habitat for Humanity, asked them to, let's look at how do we use those monies instead of building homes. Let's look at about rebuilding the homes and making sure that the natural integrity of that neighborhood could stay. Our mayor had a press conference, over $700,000 was granted for that initiative. So those things have been done, those things are actually working, the job is being done.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
I also wanted to mention that before I had any thoughts about being in city government, being a neighbor, living in that neighborhood where all of this was happening, it's being staged on my block. I actually found that the city was actually knocking down homes in a way that was unsafe and environmentally unfriendly and unhealthy for the residents. I called the EPA and I contacted them and worked with other organizations, housing organizations, and we got them to stop that process and to retrain and look at the asbestos abatement. I also watched that demo list. And I talked to people and I shared information to people who didn't know what the process was. As I learned through my own experience, I reached out and I helped individuals actually save their homes from the situation that I was in.
Thank you. The next question has to do with secondhand smoke. It says more than half of lung cancer diagnoses are people who have never smoked, especially in the hospitality industry. Don't you think it's time to protect all workers? In other words, would you be interested in closing the loophole for bars and private clubs? So this is regarding the smoking ban, and it goes first to you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Carl Nichols. We really appreciate that. Oh, it wasn't you this time. I think that, and I've said this before in the past, and as a local legislator, I think that it is vitally important to look at both sides of the paradigm. We can't just roll out a blanket policy and say, hey, you guys need to do this, you need to do that, and it actually negatively affects, or there's consequences that we didn't see in the beginning when it is placed or implemented. So my answer to that, I think that it makes sense. It does. However, how does that look for us from the beginning to the end? And starting with the end in mind, I've talked with the folks from Smoke Free organization and thought about how could we make sure that policy was implemented here in South Bend, but make sure it's countywide. South Bend has a different set of economic conditions versus the community to our east. They're a little bit more diverse. There's a lot more over there when it comes to bars, restaurants, etc. And so when we start stripping away the rights of some of our business owners in the city, when we begin to mandate these things that could negatively impact their business, then we need to make sure that everybody's on a level and even playing field. So sure, we do need to look at making sure we're healthier here in this community, but make sure that it's being done responsibly and in a proper way. Me going into a business and telling them what to do, I think that's overreaching, and that's past what my duties are as a councilman here in the city of South Bend.
Ms. Williams Davis. I'm sorry, Preston. I have very bad handwriting, though. I just have your initials and my P looks like a D.
It's always nice to have a little comic relief. Okay, that'll work.
I think she just likes saying my name.
I guess that's supposed to be what it is. Okay. With regards to the issue of secondhand smoke, I mean, I personally have my own experiences of that. I've never been a smoker. I've lived with people that I love who smoke. It's certainly something that has affected me personally. As I look to become someone who represents this community on a different level, however, I have to look beyond just what my personal experiences are and my personal feelings are. And so I think it's important that when I look to answer this question and when I'm asked to cast a vote around these issues, that I understand more about what it is the people in my district are most interested in. And there's a program that's been around someone's been talking about it for 25 years called One Voice. And I think that it's a wonderful idea in terms of being able to engage residents in this process of educating themselves, having issues on WNIT Public Access Channel. I hadn't heard about it until I won the primary and I was approached by that. And I've been working on it since then, talking to folks about how can we use that technology to educate first people. Because I think we can all have a knee-jerk reaction based on our own personal experiences. But sometimes when we learn more about an issue, remember what I was saying about investigation and how important that is to have the facts and to be able to be open and listen to what are the concerns of people on the other side. That kind of technology is going to make the difference for us so that we can learn more about what the real issue is. We educate ourselves, we engage more people in the conversation, and that's when we empower ourselves to make the right decisions for our community.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
Wow, okay. The One Voice thing is the thing that I unveiled this past week. I'm kind of confused on how my opponent is actually working on that when that was unveiled by me at a press conference. But we're going to move a little bit further than that and try to look at how this thing's going to work out. So I digress.
Yes.
Thank you. Henry, why don't I give you 30 seconds instead to respond to this question. It says the South Bend Tribune reported that your campaign raised no money and had no expenses. How did you pay for your yard signs?
Paid through fundraising. I purposely sent that report in like that because I wanted to have a conversation about finances. I want that door to be open. You know, it's been very difficult to have a conversation about finances, especially with people that you are looking at to either A, replace you or running against you in a district race. I want the conversation to be a level playing field. The report is now on file, and I'm glad that question was asked. And so I want to make sure that we're not spending our time talking about $153 versus $95,000 and making sure that we place those conversations in perspective right now.
50 seconds.
And I think it's important, again, that we get correct information, because as a council person, it's absolutely irresponsible to be spreading things that aren't true and inciting issues and concerns of people when you don't really know the situation. And actually, I'm not talking about what people are saying are $95,000. I'm talking about issues around the Western Corridor and displacement issues. The real issue that's at play here with displacement is about aggressive code enforcement. And although I've reached out to my council person to talk about that, I've actually never had any response to really looking at what's happening to the people of our district.
Thank you. I am going to ask you one more question, and I'll give you 60 seconds, although it's obviously actually a huge topic, but this person put most important with lots of arrows, so they clearly want to hear you both address this. It says African American babies are dying at a rate compared to developing countries. How can a city administration do something to fight this epidemic? So what could you do at a local level? And we'll go first to you, Regina Williams-Preston.
You know, that lends right into my wheelhouse. Education, education, education. And as an educator, I see a lot of different things coming through the schools, and the education system is a wonderful place to like disseminate information, engage people who are already connected or who need to be connected. And I believe that our city government needs to utilize that. And, you know, for some reason, and I still don't understand why there's this big separation between city government and the public schools. And I think there's a lot of ways that we can work together to talk about issues just like that, to talk about issues of violence, to talk about those things. I mean, the other issue is like food deserts. Are you serious right now? In my neighborhood, we've got Munchie Marts all over the place. And, you know, when are we going to have an opportunity to have good food in the neighborhood that's close? And those are the kinds of things we need to look at that's going to be responsive to what's actually needed in District 2.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
First, I want to talk about jobs. Jobs is a number one factor as it relates to people having access to healthy food. There's a market, and there's a market for new groceries to set up in an area, then they will. They feel like they can make some money there. But if the census tract is reading that the poverty rate is beyond the sky and the limit of the sky, then you're going to have these sorts of issues. So that's why we got to continue to talk about jobs, 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 and jobs, and expanding our tax base beyond our TIF districts, which are some of the major places in the city that are under this poverty title or tag that we do have. As it relates to now neighborhood development, and I think my opponent continues to talk around it. If your housing is not proper in your neighborhood, if your children do not feel properly suited or feel like their neighborhood is valuing them, then you're going to continue to have these issues of poverty. You're going to continue to have crime. You're going to continue to have violence. And if our neighborhoods are not conducive to growth, then you're going to have infant mortality rates. There's a big ball there of confusion that continues to pervade us, and if we continue to ignore those economic conditions, if we do not be intentional about making sure that investments are in given areas, we're going to continue to see more babies dying in the city.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have come to time for closing statements for this portion of the forum, and we'll start with you, Regina Williams-Preston.
How long do we have for that?
90 seconds.
Okay, I just want to say I really appreciate this opportunity. This has certainly been a college. I feel like I got a whole nother degree with this experience of running for council. I think that there's a lot that needs to be changed in this process in terms of getting the focus off of politics. There's an awful lot of blaming and shaming, and the Tribune almost quoted me like I was talking about Henry. I'm not talking about Henry. I'm talking about this city government itself. Everybody plays that game, and I think my eyes have been open to this process, and it's a problem. It's really a problem because, again, we're more focused on personalities and issues and personal problems than we are on the people of our district. And the people of second district are in a situation where we need to be focused on them, giving them what they need, and making sure that we're not getting in the way of that. And so that's one of the things that I'm really concerned about. Let's get back to the issues. Let's focus on what those things are and make sure that we're making change that's necessary in our community so that everyone benefits, especially from this revitalization that's happening. We need to benefit, we need to participate in it and benefit from the revitalization that's happening in District 2.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
District 2 has been, for lack of better words, have been prostituted by the Democratic Party for a number of years. 98% of the Democratic vote comes directly out of that district. Those are the statistics. That district is prone to vote Democrat 98% of the time. That district is riddled and has been showcased as where the rare house vote is at. That district has also been primed and used for census tracts data, which community development block grants come out of, which has not supported development or has changed the crime rate or the unemployment rate. District 2 definitely needs a leader and advocate for District 2. I've done that and have been on that track for the last 8 years. We have made major gains. The biggest accomplishment was getting the trust of the people in District 2. For so far too long, that district has been moved around, pushed around, and treated as if it did not matter. Now the residents of District 2 really understand that they do matter. We've seen this in the development of the West Side Main Street Corridor project. That project came directly out from the folks over at the LaSalle Park Neighborhood Association. Although we're not happy with the way the two-way streets have come out, we are seeing the progression of new tax base happening in a given area. We're seeing how the facade grants that we came up with to show and improve the small business owner in that area. We are seeing those things now, and we are looking forward to another 4 years of growth in District 2. So again, support Henry Davis, support the movement, but no. Support the people of District 2 because they're on the move. Thank you.
Thank you. You all can stay up there because there may be some questions for everybody. I would like to start then. If you do have any questions in general for our council members, please get your note cards up. I'd like to start by asking the sitting members of the council, Tim Scott and Karen White, to respond to Mr. Davis's claim that the 2nd District has been prostituted by the Democratic Party. Are you declining or? Plead the fifth.
I would just say that's not
Saying that it's been ignored by the council.
I said the Democratic Party. I didn't say the council.
Okay.
I can't speak.
Okay. All right. Let's go. I know that we had several people write in about the smoking ban issue and whether the council will close that loophole. So if you all could come up in just 30 seconds, give how would you vote if a proposal came forward to actually close the loophole and ban smoking in South Bend bars, taverns, and private clubs. So please come and use the microphone.
Okay. Tim Scott again, 1st District. I was a co-sponsor of the smoking ban before. I agreed with Ragina Williams-Preston.
Right.
That investigation and due diligence is important, and I spent a lot of time on that prior to, and I've seen places within Lovell, Michigan, which is just a stoplight, and I've looked at it on both sides of it. I was a co-sponsor, and there's a reason for. I'm getting the hook, so we can get into more of that whenever.
So was that a
Co-sponsor, yes. Yeah.
Doing my closed the loophole. All right, let's hear from District 3. Mr. Kelly. On your toes.
Hello again. Yes, I would absolutely support the smoking ban. The Tribune wrote an article on this, and when they contacted me, I cited 2 CDC, Center for Disease Control studies that I looked at. One dealt with public health, another dealt with impact on businesses. And while it's impossible to say that no businesses would be negatively impacted, the majority are positively impacted by smoking bans, as certainly is public health. Thank you.
Ms. Roden.
I'd vote close the loophole. Several reasons. One, just pure health for the workers, for co-workers, for the patrons of those businesses. I'd also think it's important to understand that there is an economic benefit, and we have seen that in other communities that have closed the loophole. So that's important. And I also think we need to get beyond the smoking. I do think we need to reach out across the county and make sure that we try to level the playing field. So working with the other councils on the city level, but county level as well. And it is a health issue, and I think we need to up that conversation. And I do think we need far more tools than talking about smoking bans. We want to talk about economic development of businesses.
All right.
You want to hand him that? Oh, my. Y'all don't have it?
Speaking from a strictly public safety, I would definitely vote for the smoking ban.
All right.
Set the table. Maybe we can set the table.
Right, Mr. Gordy.
No one has to be reminded how bad smoking is for each individual and for the secondhand smoke for everyone around it. However, I would not vote for a smoking ban. What I would advocate is conspicuous posting of those establishments that allow smoking, the same way the federal government did with postings on packs of cigarettes, for example. It's hazardous to your health. You don't have to be convinced that that's the case. However, I would not put our businesses at a competitive disadvantage to those in the county where smoking would be allowed. I would be for a county-wide ban, I suppose, but I wouldn't impose that upon businesses. I would require them to conspicuously post it.
I think we all know that this is a public health issue. When this vote became before the council, I think it was last year, I was one that did support the smoking ban. I think it's important that we do reach over to the county, and also we had some discussions in regards to the businesses and maybe looking at a means of grandfathering those businesses, but I do support it.
Thank you. Okay, another question, this one we received by email for all of the candidates was, are you a supporter of the Smart Streets initiative? Why or why not is that a good use of taxpayer money? And so we will go ahead and start with the candidates up here, and then I'll ask the rest of you to respond. We'll start with you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Smart Streets, no, I was not a supporter of it. As a matter of fact, I voted against that for a number of reasons. The main reason is that we need commerce into our area. If we do not have commerce coming into our area, meaning traffic, that area will eventually die off. If you will go into Western Avenue or you drive down Lincoln Way, you will see a bottleneck of traffic or a procession of traffic that has happened up and down there that makes you not want to travel down there. I had a business owner tell me that his trucks could not get out there. It took him about 45 minutes for his trucks to get out on Lincoln Way West during prime hours. So I did not support it because of those very reasons.
Thank you. Ms. Williams-Preston.
I was not on the council, of course, when that passed or anything, but I know I live one block off of Lincoln Way. And as they talked about changing the striping on those streets, I had lots of doubts, as did my neighbors, as to how in the world that was actually going to work for us. And the city continued to say over and over again, well, we had all these this research from Boston and Pittsburgh or wherever there was. And what we do know, and we've heard said a million times, South Bend is not Boston, South Bend is not Pittsburgh. And from what I understand, when you do your research, you're looking at what's going from here to there. If your goal is to get from downtown to the airport as soon as possible, that probably is the best striping, maybe. But if you live behind those districts, you live behind those corridors, it's impossible to get in and out of there. My mom lives right on the other side of Lincoln Way, and I go that way constantly. And it's become a real problem since they changed that striping.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Now, Tim, make sure you answer the question.
Always do, Henry. I'm supportive of smart streets. I'm supportive of taking the 2 highways that run through our downtown, Michigan and Maine, that are 4 lanes, which I travel every day to my job, and distributing that amongst other streets, as well as having 2-way traffic to get around. You talk about economic development. I've seen it in Denver. I've seen it in Naples, Florida. I've seen it elsewhere, where dead cities have turned around because they've removed that because of economic growth. The Chase Tower is being redeveloped right now. You have Hoffman Hotel and you have LaSalle that are all being redeveloped. Why? Because they know the streets are going too late.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
I do support the Smart Streets Initiative to continue because, for reasons Mr. Scott mentioned, I think we've heard from developers and business people that's part of the reason they're coming to town, they want to develop here. Again, notwithstanding obviously some areas where it may not work, we think to be visited in certain areas. I think that the data is clear, and I like that we're not just being emotional about issues, but we're looking to be data driven. And the data clearly shows that economic impact is positive when these things happen.
Ms. Brody?
I think in terms of smart streets, the evidence is, I think, pretty clear if you look in my district alone. Jefferson Boulevard is a smart street today, okay? The businesses have profited from the slowed down traffic, from the walkers, from the bicyclists. I think if you look at Eddy Street Commons, another example of businesses, high density, population, going to areas to purchase, to play, to recreate, to eat. That's what we need. We need that infill in South Bend. Slower streets that are more accommodating to all modes of transportation is one of our answers to economic development.
Thank you. Mr. Emery?
In its current form, I don't think it is the end all of all the problems with the streets of the city. But I do support it, but it needs to be revisited and work out the kinks of the process.
Thank you. Mr. Gordy?
I listened to the whole presentation about smart streets. As I said on the sidelines, the city clerk, I would have been a tough sell. I had so many questions and so many doubts about the efficacy of that of the Smart Streets program. And the price tag, $26 million plus, is an awful lot of money when there are so many other needs in the community. I probably would have voted for it. Maybe I should have stopped right there, but because I like what it's doing in downtown South Bend. There's a microcosm example of what that does on East Jefferson, and my time is up, but
I would like to come back behind John. I know what you were saying towards the end. I did support smart streets. It's more than just looking at Jefferson and downtown. I think it's important that we continue the conversation. We've heard from citizens from the Lincoln Way corridor and the Western Avenue corridor. The citizens have given us feedback on certain areas, and I think that we need to respond to them. And I think that conversation should continue.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next question for all candidates: in the absence of state state or federal protections, do you personally support the expanded version of South Bend's human rights ordinance that includes protections on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity? We can start.
You can start with me, actually, because what happens is this, that's already been done, that's been passed. So asking if somebody supports it or not wouldn't make a difference because it's already law. It's already law.
And it could not be revisited?
No, it's fine. We're fine with, we moved past, it's being funded, and, you know, everyone has their rights.
Excuse me, sir, I asked the questions that come in on the note cards and an email. I do not appreciate that accusation.
I didn't appreciate the question.
Well, that is not your decision. This is what citizens are asking. So I'd appreciate some respect for the process that we have had for South Bend, Elkhart, and Mishawaka forums.
So I hope I answered that. It's just kind of difficult saying whether you support something or not when it's already law.
Well, actually, we do either support or not support existing law because law and policies change.
Now when it's already been mandated by the federal court system, the Supreme Court, they've already moved past that. I just don't understand what the question
No,
is.
this issue is-
I mean, I support it, but I just can't understand how do we revisit something that's already law?
It sounds like a citizen is asking what people's opinions are on that issue. There are also
wow.
opinions about, questions about other issues that don't have to do with council, but this was something passed by the council.
Okay.
I assume that they wanted to know how somebody would vote if they were on council. It is not a settled issue in terms of the U.S. Supreme Court, a state court, or state law.
It
Right?
almost is. I think it is, but. Okay.
Well, Elkhart right now is debating whether or not to follow suit, right? And so they're looking at.
But South Bend has
what
already
council
passed
will
it.
decide.
South Bend has already passed it.
Yes, South Bend has already passed it, and did you support or oppose it?
We've already passed it. It's been supported. It's already been done.
Okay.
I was a co-sponsor of the bill in 2007 with my good friend over there. So I absolutely supported the Dennis.
I was a co-sponsor of the bill that was passed, that started by Charlotte and Randy, and I firmly believe, all you guys before us, and I firmly believe Progressive City is a diverse city and accepting to all.
Here, I wish I was around to vote affirmatively for that.
I believe all people, regardless of who they are, what they believe, who they love, should be respected under any law.
Absolutely support the bill and the whole thing.
I support the bill as well.
All people deserve equal protection under the law, and I would have support the bill. I support it now.
Thank you. The next question asks for each of you to define what is the single biggest challenge facing your district, something that you will work on as a member of council. So the single biggest challenge facing your district, if you're at large, that could be the city. And so we'll start actually with District 1 with Tim Scott.
Again, like I said before, health and public safety. Public safety is a very crucial issue, and there are many facets to that that our candidates all here brought out, from how does it play for economic development, jobs, housing, fair housing for people. That is the number one crucial issue within the first district, and I look forward to tackling it.
Thank you. District 2?
The two biggest issues that concerns the city's second district definitely is expansion of tax base, which means investment, which means jobs. It's critical that the folks in District 2 are working. If we have people who are working, we have a healthy neighborhoods, we will have a lower crime rate. That is the single biggest issue, and that could be number one. And also number two, investment. We have areas within this District 2 that are prime for investment, but are being withheld from investment due to outside influences buying up property from demolition of vacant houses. So it's still being strangled, but definitely we need investment, private and public.
Thank you. Ms. Williams-Preston.
Do I give up my microphone? The most important issue facing District 2 in the next few years is the redevelopment and revitalization on the west side. Of course, that encompasses all of the different issues in terms of jobs, for the economic development, education in order to get those jobs, housing, of course, but most importantly, and it's directly related to the issue of housing and having affordable housing, is this issue of displacement. Because in the last 4 years, we have seen already residents of District 2 lose their properties, give those properties away because of the policies and procedures that have been put in place by this city. And if we don't pay attention to that issue, then the typical process of gentrification will happen, but I'm not going to let that happen. So we need to make sure that we understand what's going on, and so that we can begin to reverse this process and make sure the residents of District 2 are actually here in the next 4 years.
Thank you. District 3, Randy Kelly.
Similarly, in the 3rd district, issues of public safety and development in areas such as the southeast side, and we have representation as well that we've heard a lot about in this 2nd district forum. So with regard to economic development there and infrastructure improvement and housing, again, which and issues of crime, which come from, again, having jobs, having opportunity. We need that in areas of the 3rd district.
Thank you. District 4, Joe Brody.
Thanks. Getting it right is probably the best way to sum it up. The 4th district has a lot of building projects that are going to happen or are happening as we speak. Eddy Street Phase 2, mixed use, Innovation Park at Notre Dame, Phase 2, Ignition Park, and the next door neighbor, Innovation Park in the district, the Studebaker administration building the plant. I mean, we've got to get these right. Our vitality as a city, our employability of our residents, the income of our families, we've got to get it right. So that's my job, is to work with all the partners, academic, business, residents, and get it right. It'll have impact on the whole growth of our city.
Thank you. District 5, Robert Anderson.
The 2 issues that are facing the 5th district are both public safety and quality of life issues. Investing in the youth, the only way that we can curb the epidemic of violence going across our city is by investing in the next generation that is coming up. And second is investing in the infrastructure on and getting the sidewalks and lights in our district.
Thank you. John Gordy.
The vitality of the city depends on the vitality of each neighborhood. Downtown is a neighborhood, and there has been a lot of investment in downtown, and I think you're seeing good things happening there. There's a certain synergism and momentum that can take on its own. Now the pendulum of resources has to swing toward neighborhoods, but where you got to listen to the people, whether it's neighborhood organizations or individuals. The people who live in those neighborhoods know what's best. Of course, you have to separate wants and needs based on resources, but that's kind of what the council does. It helps set priority after listening to the neighborhoods. People want, time is up, people want to feel good about their neighborhoods, and they'll feel good about the city.
Thank you. Karen White.
For me, it would be still the neighborhoods. I think it's important, and one of my goals would be to work to ensure that as the houses have been removed from the neighborhoods, what should stand. We cannot have all infill with Unity Gardens. They're wonderful, I'm not saying that they're not, but it's very difficult to live on a street and then maybe only 1 or 2 houses. That does not make a neighborhood. So we have to look at quality of life, neighborhoods, streets, curbs, public safety. I'm all about neighborhoods, and all neighborhoods are not the same. And so we have to look at those neighborhoods that the resources have not been proportionally given.
Thank you very much. It is now time to quickly thank our co-sponsors, the League of Women Voters of the South Bend area, along with the Political Science Club of IU South Bend. I would like to thank all of our student volunteers and each of you who came this evening. Finally, remember that you can talk informally or ask questions that perhaps you didn't send up on note cards by meeting with our candidates over some punch and cookies in the hallway. We do encourage you to give us your contact information so that we can contact you about future events. And shameless plug, if you're not already watching Politically Speaking and calling in at 2 p.m. on Sundays, I would love to hear from you all. Next Sunday is teacher shortage, so if you have thoughts about that, call in to WNIT. Early voting. And early voting, you can vote, but also be sure to get there on Election Day, November 3rd, if not earlier. Polls open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And thank you to our candidates. One final round for